Hello, everybody. How is it going on this Saturday morning? It might be Saturday afternoon where you are, or perhaps even Saturday evening. But thank you for joining me. I'm here just kind of doing a breaking news report on the settlement announcement for Cassie's lawsuit against Diddy. I think that caught a lot of people by surprise last night. I mean, it was Friday night and Friday kind of late night, too. I mean, I saw it through the New York Times post about it and immediately went to the court file, and there wasn't a notice of settlement filed yet. But Diddy and Cassie's sides have both issued statements. Actually, when I emailed Cassie's lawyers, I was expecting to only get her statement, but they had Diddy's statement included in the email. And yeah, that's that. It was really kind of a shocking, fast turnaround for this. And, they make clear in the statement that they are not going to be saying anything else. Let me pull it up here. I think people have maybe seen it on Twitter. I cannot call it X, but yeah, let me pull it up here. Her lawyers had just hours earlier, they were on LinkedIn, announcing the settlement and or not announcing the settlement, excuse me, announcing the lawsuit. And it definitely didn't seem like they were in settlement mode at all. So I'm wondering, what kind of surprise this was to him at the last minute. But you'll see Cassie's statement is, I have decided to resolve this matter amicably on terms that I have some level of control. I want to thank my family, fans, and lawyers for their unwavering support. And Diddy said, we have decided to resolve this matter amicably. I wish Cassie and her family all the best. Love. And Cassie's lead lawyer, who's Douglas Wigder, said, I'm very proud of Miss Ventura for having the strength to go public with her lawsuit. She ought to be commended for doing this. And I got this from emailing the three attorneys, Douglas Wigder and his two law partners who were working on the case with him. And one of them responded within just a couple of minutes. Meredith did. This is obviously the statement that they're sending to everyone, but you'll see that there's a preface to those quotes, and it says, this evening, Miss Ventura and Mr. Combs resolved the claims that she filed against him yesterday in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York to their mutual satisfaction. The parties will have no further statements beyond what is provided in this email. So it's like, wow, that was pretty unexpected. Um, and kind of the consensus from just like lawyers I was talking to was, it seemed like some really bad lawyering on Puff Daddy's part, or on Puff Daddy's lawyer's part, because I mean, at first when this lawsuit was filed and the statements were released, it was like, okay, obviously she won't settle. There's no settlement happening here. This is going to be public. But then this makes it clear that she was able to willing to settle. So to just end up settling this and probably give her a bunch of money. I mean, we can assume there was a huge financial sum given here, but to do all that and still have all these allegations come out everywhere. I mean, that they talked about how she'd been threatening to write a tell-all book. That complaint that they filed was like basically a tell-all book. So, I mean, the effect on this for Diddy, I mean, he just seems like he kind of lost in both realms. I don't know. It's strange. And then somebody else questioned. She's somebody experienced in these issues, who's not at all connected to this case, and she's works on the West Coast. She doesn't even really know the agencies involved in this, but she just wondered if the rush to settlement had something to do with just kind of trying to squelch any kind of possibility of any criminal investigation, because we all saw the reports from I think it was TMZ, of course, that had the anonymous people saying that there was some kind of secret investigation. It's like, compared to any normal investigation that's not just like they don't have press conferences about, but said that there was some kind of secret investigation into Diddy. And then apparently somebody in the PIO's office actually like confirmed that to other media and made a statement that NYPD then went and walked back and said, no, there's no police investigation at all. But it's like, Okay, just the fact that these discussions are going on and that there's somebody within NYPD that was, like, confused at the in the PIO's office and said that there was, has gotta make Diddy's team a little bit nervous. I mean, yeah, somebody says here, "NYPD said no investigation," but the whole thing was just it was just weird, and it's like, what is going on actually going on behind the scenes there? But, it was just a lightning fast settlement and all just the kinda hoopla on it, but I'll bring up the, yeah, I mean, the idea that, that all of this is just made up when he turns around and settles like that, and of course, what this prevents is any kind of discovery process or anything like that, but without knowing the terms, I don't know, it's just weird, and the use of the term "amicably" in both of their statements is weird too. It's like, that's yeah, and somebody brings up for the police investigation, like, what if it's not an NYPD investigation? What if it's a federal investigation? No, exactly. There could be a lot more going on here, but the use of the term amicably in here is like, really? I mean, after you filed a complaint, I mean, you just read the stuff in that complaint. It's like, how could anything be amicable after that? And they had a trigger warning on the lawsuit. But what I thought was interesting was when I got the email from it's Meredith Firetog. She's a partner with Doug Wigder, who actually they represent a lot of people. They just sued Harvey Weinstein recently, it looks like. But she just posted on LinkedIn yesterday, and when I saw this last night, like right after the settlement had been announced, I saw her page. This post was only 10 hours old. So the attorneys clearly were not in settlement mode. It's not like I mean, sometimes you can kind of read through between the lines and see that, well, I mean, maybe they were, but it's like sometimes they're like on the brink of a settlement. They were trying to get somewhere and they couldn't. So they decided to play real hardball and file this and go public with it. And then they just expected there to be a settlement. I'm not sure if that's what happened because just the posture of the attorneys here, I mean, to have her post this and then 10 hours later, there's a confidential settlement that I bet we're not going to hear much more about, like just in terms of the dollar amount or something like that, other than just speculation. It just strikes me as really weird. Like a couple people, like just experienced attorneys, were saying that it was like just kind of shocking, the whole thing. But one thing, and I talked about this in the last live, was one reason this got so much attention is the New York Times breaking news alert about it. And I just think that, I mean, of course they sent out a news alert when it's settled too, but for them to be casting that as breaking news really is what amplified the like international attention that this got. So I mean, you just wonder what that does and what that must be like for somebody like Cassie, who went through this and to file this. I mean, of course she had to have known it was going to get publicity, and the whole thing is written to get publicity. The attorneys worked with the New York Times ahead of time, or some PR firm did. So I mean, obviously she knew that this was going to be publicity, but you've got to imagine that just the shock of all the publicity it got, like what she's been dealing with in the last 24 hours, having all this media attention on it, has got to be, I can't even imagine. And yeah, the 30 million, the trace of that, it's like, where did that even come from? Because it's not in the lawsuit at all. And really, when you see dollar amounts, damage requests given out in initial complaints like that, they're really like so preliminary. It's not necessarily, what could happen, the damages request in a trial or something. Like sometimes they're kind of just put in there to like get press attention, but there's no dollar amount in her complaint at all. And the attorney's news release on it here, this is Meredith sharing the law firm's post. Lawyers love LinkedIn, by the way. Like if they're on other social media platforms, they're definitely not like posting publicly. Well, some are, but all the lawyers are on LinkedIn. It's where they go to kiss ass and get their asses kissed. But here, the law firm issued this announcement about it yesterday. So they've got the complaint, which, like I said, the complaint, which I think a lot of people have seen. And I'll link this in the chat for you guys to bring up. It doesn't say anything about 30 million. And so I was thinking maybe the lawyers said something about it, but no. And that it just came from Diddy's team saying that she'd been requesting that amount. So to say it was a $30 million lawsuit, $30 million lawsuit, I mean, that's kind of just something people made up. But yeah, quotes permitted for publication. I mean, they had this all set up. This is for anybody to take. And that's what, there's so much reporting on this that just kind of regurgitates the other reporting. Like, oh, the New York Times is reporting that Cassie sued Diddy, but you've got, I mean, you could use this as a primary source. That's what the law firm has this set up to do. They've got the complaint linked right in here. So, I mean, any like hip hop blog who's trying to write about this could just go here and get all the information and not have to cite the New York Times. But they've got Cassie's quote and Doug's quote, and then they updated it after Braffman, who's Diddy's lawyer, made that statement about, you know, basically accusing Cassie of extortion. They updated their press release page to include Doug's statement responding to that. So, I mean, they were just so clearly in, you know, they were ready to go. Like, I mean, it's pretty shocking that this settled. But then, like I said, when you just think about about all the press attention that this got, and then the shock that Cassie had to have been going through. I mean, she's used to huge attention, and she had to have known this was going to get huge attention, but it was just like everywhere, you know? And same for Diddy. I mean, I know within the industry, there'd always been talk about this, and he, you know, maybe didn't have the best reputation here and there, but just like mass mainstream, I don't think mass mainstream really had like a dark you know, maybe some did, but this completely like ruined it. I mean, this is going to be Diddy's reputation for a while, the rest of his career. I mean, maybe not his entire reputation because he's a huge billionaire mogul, but this is going to follow him around. So, yeah, I mean, it seems like the damage was pretty much done from the lawsuit, but yeah, if somebody says if somebody else sues him, can Cassie be questioned for their discovery? Yeah, they could try to take a deposition from her for sure. It would be, you know, she might try to block it, or Diddy might try to block it, or something like that. But we could definitely see that. We've seen that in Trevor Bauer, that Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher, former Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher, who's accused of sexual assault and has other accusers too. But there's actually a current lawsuit in Arizona, Maricopa County Superior Court, which is the Phoenix area, a woman who's accusing him of sexual assault. And there's probably going to be like depositions taken of the other accusers. And like in Lindsey Hill's counterclaim against Trevor Bauer, there were going to be that was a big issue before Trevor Bauer settled, was the other accusers and how their depositions could be taken and how they could like play a role in trial. So definitely, if somebody else sues Diddy, we could see them trying to get like a deposition from Cassie. Whether it actually happens would be another issue or another question. But yeah, the damage was done. Yeah, and that's what somebody said, that it just seemed like really bad lawyering by Diddy's lawyers to like refuse to settle this, and then, you know, a day after this complaint comes out, settle it. It's like, okay, so you guys were willing to settle, and apparently so was she. And so you settle it and pay her a bunch of money, but you still get all the damage from the lawsuit. Because the thing with these lawsuits, I mean, it was just, like I said, the New York Times breaking news alert is what did it. But all the attention on this, I mean, I went on like Fox Live Now, Scripps News, Good Morning Britain. It's like, you guys, it's a lawsuit being filed. And everybody is just like, oh, what's the next step? It's like, well, like, maybe they'll file an answer to the complaint. And I talked on Fox Live now about how Diddy could file a counterclaim against her because it really seemed like the kind of posture for that lawsuit. I mean, it was shocked that it was shocking that it settled there. But I mean, it's a lawsuit. There wasn't going to be anything that was really going to happen with it for a while. The filing of the complaint is the big thing and what gets all the attention, and you kind of win the PR game, and then nothing else happens for a while. So I mean, it's a celebrity case. Diddy's really famous, so's Cassie, and I can see why it got all the attention, just kind of the salacious allegations. But the way the way everybody was, I'm probably going to do more TV hits about it this weekend, and I'm just like, guys, I just covered a trial involving it was a federal trial. The guy was convicted of manslaughter. He was the captain of a boat. It was a recreational diving boat, and 34 people died in a fire in the bottom of the boat. It was back Labor Day weekend off the coast of Santa Barbara. This was in 2019, and it was international news when it happened. It's like a big mass casualty event like that, and the people were from maybe not all over the country, but from all over the West Coast, like some from Arizona and everything. So it definitely is like a national news story. And the manslaughter trial of the captain, because he did not do anything to try to save the people when the fire broke out, it got like no coverage at all. And it's a federal trial, so you can't have cameras in court, and I can kind of understand that. But I mean, it was like me and a couple other reporters, like a Law 360 reporter, a Courthouse News Service reporter. LA Times barely covered the trial, even though they won a Pulitzer for covering the Conception boat tragedy when it happened. And I thought for sure when the verdict came out, it's like, okay, that is at least going to get some attention. I was like, that's going to be a national story when the captain gets convicted of manslaughter on that. And it kind of was, but I mean, I was expecting some kind of TV hits from like these TV stations, like Scripps News, Fox Live Now, or whatever it is. And I know people get all, why am I doing stuff with Fox? But it's not quite the same as Fox News, although it is the live streaming on their website. But the guy that I talked to on there is completely straightforward, and we're just talking about the news. But yeah, it's like this celebrity obsession where everybody ignores this. It's like the biggest maritime disaster in modern day United States history or something. It was a really big thing. And this federal trial, to have somebody convicted of manslaughter, that was pretty rare. And he got freaking no coverage even after he got convicted. None of these stations called me to do any kind of hits. But with this lawsuit being filed, they're just like, oh, Megan, are you around for another TV hit? And I'm like, okay, but it's just a lawsuit being filed, guys. I mean, and I don't want to downplay the allegations because but it's just like it's just the priority of these places. But um yeah, I mean, I agree. It's but just in terms of what the press kind of makes, I don't know. I mean, like I said, for New York Times to send out a breaking news alert about a lawsuit being filed was like, look, that lawsuit could have been filed like any day of the week. It wasn't like a new thing like that. But like, yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to downplay the allegations here, but sometimes it's just the different priorities of the press and what kind of sets the agenda. Like the New York Times had issued a breaking news alert about the captain being convicted, it would have gotten way more attention nationally than it did. But anyway. I'm not sure there's really anything else to say, because I think when you see their statement, let me bring it back up again, because this is them. Excuse me. This is them announcing the lawsuit, but they make it pretty clear in there that they're not going to be saying anything else. So here, yeah, the parties will have no further statements beyond what is provided in this email. So, I mean, the idea that we're going to hear much more about this, but with everything that was going on with, NYPD, could it be federal, that kind of thing, it seems like, have we heard the last of this? Probably not. Like I think we've heard the last of like this specific piece of litigation, but the idea that this issue is just like done, I think is not true. Somebody says I'm missing the cultural significance of who Diddy is. No, I mean, it's a big story. It's just the whole filing a lawsuit against somebody and calling it breaking news. I'm not sure that was in keeping with like maybe what a lot of other news organizations, like I said, the Washington Post didn't follow up and call it breaking news. I'm sure they covered it because it's a story, but to call this breaking news and act like it's just this big monumental like breaking news event when it's like it could have been filed next week, it could have been filed last week, although she does time it to it's November 24th that she had to file it because that New York statute of limitations, the act that allows her to file claims past the statute of limitations was going to expire on the 24th. So she did have it's still going to expire on the 24th, but she did have like kind of a limited window to get this done. But again, filing a lawsuit national breaking news, I don't think is like accurate. But um yeah, he definitely they'd been talking about like demand letters and things that they had uh, going on the different negotiations the lawyers had been doing. But here we've got the statement from Doug Wigder after the lawsuit was filed. This is in response to Diddy's lawyer, but Doug Wigder said Mr. Combs offered Miss Ventura 8 figures to silence her and prevent the filing of this lawsuit. She rejected his efforts and decided to give voice to all women who suffer in silence. Miss Ventura should be applauded for her bravery. So obviously, I mean, it's a victory for Cassie's side, just the fact that all of this stuff was aired out. I mean, she gets she gets money from it, and which is the only thing she could have really gotten from this lawsuit. But the damage, like the cultural like reputational damage to this is yeah, I mean, somebody says, well, I mean, had Diddy, he definitely been, um, business wise. I'm not sure if we're, how immediate is the effect going to be on his business empire. I don't know. I think we could maybe see that in the next like coming weeks or so. But um, yeah. Well, and one thing, somebody actually, Cerise, she's a reporter up in LA, and she was telling me that because I remarked to her that I didn't understand why they issued a breaking news alert about it. She was like, "Oh, it's because of you. You've changed how news covers celebrity legal news." I'm like, "That might be true," and she's like, "Oh no, it's definitely true." I'm like, I'm not sure, but there is kind of a something to be said about like, okay, traditionally, like from a traditional newsroom standpoint, and like the Washington Post wouldn't consider that breaking news because it's just a lawsuit. The lawyers are at work. This guy has a point. It's like Diddy's a huge like cultural figure in not just hip hop culture, but like just business and um, society. So a lawsuit being filed like about him like that, like as soon as you find out about it, it probably is breaking news. Oh, it's interesting. But yeah, breaking news within the industry. And it was their music industry reporter that has covered this, the New York Times. Um but it wasn't, the New York Times breaking news alerts are usually like, well, they're hit or miss sometimes. I remember there was a big controversy when I don't know if I can't remember if it was the Washington Post or the New York Times, but somebody issued a news alert about the Monday night football game being canceled when the player was injured on the field, and a lot of people criticized them for that. Didn't think it was breaking news, but um, but then after the New York Times does that, they definitely had to send out a breaking news alert when it's settled for sure. But um, yeah, I mean, the Friday night settlement announcement like that, like Wiley, I've got to tune into your breaking news alerts. He's way more on it than me. He probably already has a short up about this. How's it going, Wiley? Um, Yeah, I think more. I mean, we're just speculating here, but with everything that happened and for how big this was, and then that weird NYPD stuff where somebody within NYPD told somebody that there was an investigation, which is like, well, why did they think that? And then NYPD came out and said, no, there's no investigation. It's like, okay, I wonder what's going on behind the scenes there. And somebody else who I know who's kind of experienced in like criminal investigations was like, I wonder if Diddy rushed to settle and offered her, a crazy amount of money to try to thwart any kind of possible, chance of a, or it wouldn't just completely thwart it, but it maybe could lessen the possibility of a criminal investigation. Like if Cassie somehow agreed to, I don't know. They just, like they said, they're not issuing the terms of the settlement agreement. And just the use of the word amicably in there is like, really? It's like almost seems like if you're saying amicably, it actually just completely means the opposite of that. But after that complaint, I don't know how anything could ever be amicable. But uh I think I might have to wrap it up here. If you guys have any questions, let me know. But this was a pretty quick flash in the pan thing. And let me see if the case file is even updated yet, because they are going to have to file a notice of settlement. But because it's just a civil dispute, private, well, it's public, but it's just up to them. It's not like a judge has to approve their settlement or anything. They can both, Cassie can just dismiss her claim or withdraw her claims, and that's it. But next week we should be seeing a notice of settlement filed. If I haven't checked the file today, if it hasn't been filed already, but just last night, this is what I looked up, because there'd been, after I heard there was a settlement filed or a settlement announced, it's like usually that comes in the form of a notice of settlement filed in the actual court file, which hasn't been filed yet. But you can see the case was, they were going through the motions. Like it was assigned to a judge, Denise L. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Is it Cott? And then Barbara Moses is the magistrate judge, who she actually probably would have been doing more, could have been doing more heavy lifting in the pretrial litigation, because the magistrate judges are the ones who do the discovery and deposition disputes. So if there had been any arguments between Cassie and Diddy about like what discovery they could get or who they could take depositions from, Barbara Moses would be the one to decide it. But these are all just randomly assigned to. I'm not even sure how many judges there are in the Southern District of New York, but there's probably like at least 30 or 40 or something. And it's possibly too that she could also it could end up going to another judge, but these are just random case assignments. So the court was getting all ready to do its thing for him, but then last night's announcement. So yeah, let me pull up the case file and see if anything's actually been filed by notice of settlement. But I mean, they're, from a reporting standpoint, you wouldn't just like ignore that statement. I mean, there's been no notice of settlement filed, but the fact that the attorneys are like announcing a settlement, it's like, yeah, I think that is fair to call a settlement announcement. We don't have to wait for their e-filing, because sometimes it takes, might take a little bit to put something together. They probably have some associate typing up something that they're going to file. But let me pull up the case here. Hope everybody's getting out this weekend, doing something fun. The Oregon Ducks playing Arizona State at 1 p.m. I always watch the Duck games, but it's a little overcast here today. I think it'll clear up soon, but it's overcast. It makes it a little easier to stay inside. It's nice out around Southern California. You got to get out and enjoy it, especially where I live. We're right near the coast. So yeah, here's the actual case file. Still no notice of settlement filed, but that doesn't really mean anything. I mean, it doesn't mean that they're actually not settling. The fact that they announced it is clearly news enough. So Probably next week we'll see a notice and then the case will close. But as I was saying, I don't think we've actually like heard the last of this. Just everything that's swirling around. There could be a lot more coming. Um, thanks everybody for tuning in. I don't have a lot of a lot more to add. There's a lot to say about all the claims in there. She had a lot of really specific stuff and some pretty horrifying stuff. But it was also just so obviously like designed to just maximize press coverage. Like the attorneys wanted tons of coverage for it to like kind of bring the hurt to Diddy. Like the trigger warning that they posted on it, which I'm certainly not trying to downplay anything that was in there because it's some pretty disturbing stuff. But in terms of court documents, I mean, what's in there is like kind of nothing compared to like some of the affidavits that come out about like child sex crimes and stuff. It's not comparable, but still that some of the stuff in there is kind of crazy. But a lot of like YouTubers I saw were just like reading this stuff aloud, like putting it up on the screen and stuff. Like if anything, the trigger warning like encouraged more people to actually read the lawsuit. But yeah, it probably would be a police investigation first before the DA. Somebody asked if the DA can open an investigation from her claims. It would start with the police, although DA's offices do have investigators who do their own investigations like that or might work with police. But it would originate as a police investigation, like local police or maybe federal investigation. But like I was saying earlier, we saw NYPD come out and deny that there is an investigation. But of course, that happened after someone within the NYPD PIO's office told somebody that there was an investigation, which is like, wow, why did they do that? So it's just just strange. But it was very strategic. Well done. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like whoever at Wigder LLP, like they probably contract with a public relations firm to help them get all that stuff out and work with the reporters. But I was like, I hope that they're like congratulating themselves because they did I mean, that like dominated the news cycle forever. They completely maximized like everything they wanted to do with that. So, yeah, she played her. Somebody says she played her cards right. Yeah, she totally did. And I'm always interested to think about the discussions that go on within the law firm about like what day do you actually bring this out? Because obviously they needed to bring it out before November 24th because the law the act that allows her to bring these claims expires. But the day that she filed it, it just seems like it's kind of maybe a slow news time. I don't want to say that and realize I'm forgetting like a major thing going on, but that just was an opportune time because everybody picked it up. And sometimes that stuff will come out and they're so busy with like, Trump getting arrested or something that they don't have time to really give it the attention it would get somewhere else. But it was definitely maximized to Cassie's benefit. But yeah, the settlement was a little weird. Like I said, like when you look at the lawyer's posture and just like the LinkedIn post from like 10 hours before the settlement was announced, it definitely does not seem like they're in settlement mode. But who knows what kind of offer they got. And also just what Cassie was thinking, like with the huge amount of publicity this was going that she was getting, that had to have been a lot to deal with. But anyway, thank you guys all for tuning in. I see we've got some good chat, and I don't have a moderator in here, but you guys all seem to be behaving yourselves. So thanks for tuning in. I'm glad I was able to just kind of give some people some insight into the lawsuit process and how these things work. And if anything else is filed or anything like that, I'll try to do some lives and keep on it. So yeah, the suit will definitely stay public. Like this case file will be here for eternity. Where it'll close, but we'll always be able to like go and look at it in the complaint that's right here. That's just available for free. It's always going to be there. So, I mean, they couldn't even if Cassie, like, which I don't think she would somehow agree with Diddy that, oh yeah, we should try to take that down. They wouldn't be allowed to. The court system wouldn't let them do it. So, yeah. So, thank you everybody for tuning in. So, yeah, like I said, it's Saturday. Everybody go out and enjoy the day. We've gotta get outside and like go ride your bike or something. That's always a good thing to do. So, thank you. See you guys later.